Okay, peace. All right. Remember, I was talking about that um, every single class session that I do now at a law school in Mecca will be at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Maybe I'll go earlier, but it would be where I would teach from 5 to 7 guaranteed, and if there's no one in the classroom, then I would leave at 7 p.m. And this just allows me easier transit, allows me to put, instead of just standing there and answering your questions, it allows me to just keep an earlier schedule for myself. But what it also allows me to do is also be able to come back here and give that extra third hour that I normally would give, since all that was left was the digital students, on something that's specifically focused on you all. So I don't know if everybody will log in. We'll see. This is the test. But either way, I'm going to give enough information about this that if you have any questions while I'm giving this, I'll take it as we go along, or if it's relevant, or as we go along to the end. Any questions that you have about anything. This particular build is going to be about one of my plus lessons. That's what I'm going to try to do in the beginning. I have specific topics, you know what I mean? But I want to go through that specific plus lesson, and we go through that, and then you can add on with your questions or anything like that. You know what I mean? Peace of the God, Justice Rakim. All right. So, all right. Wise son zigzag zigala. Peace. Right. So those names, although almighty and high, are not familiar to me as regular students. Anything that you want me to answer, just ask in the chat, and I will get up to it, especially about questions about the plus lesson that I'm going to go through. Okay. What I'd also like to do with these plus lessons is also give you, as I always do, I always like to give like a mentality of why I decide to teach certain things and don't, you know. And I don't have the shade up. If you see that tart thing, that's my Wing Chun dummy up there. You know what I'm saying? But always tarp it up after I'm done. But after a couple of years, I made this plus lesson. I don't remember when I first made it because I didn't date it. I didn't date the plus lesson. I usually do. A lot of them I have, and as you'll see, I add. And a lot of the ones I started to date them and the reason I started to date the plus lessons, like when I wrote them, was because they weren't really finished. So some of these lectures, they're going to be important because they're going to force me to add new things to it and make it more of a complete doctrine. But the Build Awareness Square Plus lesson, this what I call Power Bat, and I just kept it to some kind of acronym. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking about what can we do to build our awareness. You know what I mean? Our square. What should we care about when we get knowledge of self? Our square. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to make it catchy. So I said Build Awareness Square, right? Because the T in the Supreme Alphabet is Truth of Square. So I just left it like that. And I put power. You put power in front of everything, so that way it's emphasized. You know what I mean? That was the mentality behind it. But over all the years of teaching, this plus lesson was probably written after probably maybe about 12 years of teaching. Early 2010s, I'm writing these plus lessons. And here's why. And I just couldn't do it because students have never been consistent in that fashion. I've always had to take the approach. And I'm saying all this because I'm also teaching educators in this nation. And when you're teaching people off the street, when you're teaching people in the street, you adjust to what they're dealing with, though, and you give them what you can. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the trials and tribulations that I've had is because PC Kareem is because I've taught a lot of I've inculcated, you know what I mean, or infused, right? I probably inculcate is a good word though. You know what I'm saying? Because I kind of really, really put it in there. You know what I mean? Um, a lot of orthodox methods into the way that the 5% was teaching at a law school in Mecca. You know what I mean? And I got a lot of I got a lot of blowback from that. You know what I mean? Um, teaching books specifically, teaching books that don't seem to be about what we deal with. You know what I'm saying? Um, teaching books that don't seem to be about a lesson particularly. You know what I mean? And not really understanding that a lot of the books I was picking were for creativity, were to expound on specific aspects of you, all of these things, right? And even including some of the books, you'd be surprised. Some of the books that the elders, my own teachers, would recommend for me, wasn't what, my own teachers like Savior Knowledge, who really was the most well-read of my early teachers in the knowledge. Many of the books he recommended to me that become a foundation, like As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, these are books that, I learned that, he was lambasted for using as well. You know what I mean? So that became something as well. Now, my mentality now, when I started writing these specific plus lessons, was that I wanted to have specific themes as I taught each year. That was a goal of mine, especially around 2012 and 2013. It didn't work out like that because students weren't as regular. There is a possibility that the regularity of you students that are online can actually provoke that, because you can go back and watch the episodes even if you miss them. So that's something that could be I could do again. But I am going to start writing different plus lessons to put things together, to make sense out of things, and to make it more useful. So, right, when I saw, and Justice Rakim, I see your question now. I'm going to keep on with the plus lesson. And after I finish the plus lesson, I'd like to answer all the other questions that people have in general about anything, because this is still the P.E.A.C.E course. This is how I'm using this extra hour, because it was the school was empty and it was closed. So it was really closing time. I'm not getting students later. So if I have 2 out of my 3 hours, like I said, if 2 out of my 3 hours, no students show up, then I just leave. And this online people, I'll catch you later because you were always there. Okay. So with the plus lesson, the first thing I thought, and it's not the first plus lesson I wrote, but I realized that I need a plus lesson that kind of puts together some of the details, some of the details of what I find most useful. You know what I mean? All right. Let me take a pause here. Let me put this on mute for. So that was my daughter. She calls me all the time. My daughters call me all the time. It's such a blessing. You know what I mean? But it's a beautiful thing. So the plus lesson, the Build Awareness Square, was really based on the idea was that people wanted to. A lot of times people come get the knowledge for 2 reasons. And if I could generalize, mind you, with all generalizations, there's always great room for error. But when you generalize, I found that there are 2 types of students that you get when they try to get the knowledge, and especially different. People talking, most 5%ers are students of the teachers in the street. My experience, mostly because of everything that I've lived, is through my works. So whether through teaching at the school or the works that I put out, and then people coming to me to learn, right? And then even in the street, if people approach me, it's because they might know who I am after a while. So what happens is this, right? Most of the people that try to learn stuff and come to a law school in Mecca, that they're willing to learn things, is because they either two things. They are either seeking salvation, or they are just seekers of knowledge. The truth is that both of those categories actually have a low percentage of continuing to learn. as all the percentages. There's a reason that we call the, only 5%. It's really in the 85. There's a very low percentage of those that are actually going to learn. You know what I mean? However, the one that seeks salvation ends up being the ones that crowd the school and crowd the parliaments, though. And where it's all about. The actual people, right? The reason that we always have to test the knowledge of self, right? The reason that you have to test the knowledge of self at all times, right, is because the knowledge of self ends up being true, and then you don't test it out anymore. You know what I mean? Then you don't test it out anymore. So what happens is this, right? Jiddu Krishnamurti, the famous philosopher, said that if something is seen by knowledge, of course, I put the addendum here because when people read it, they go, no, he didn't say that. Jiddu Krishnamurti, when you read his works, he used the word information the way we use knowledge, something that's absolute. And he used the word knowledge as the way we use information, something that is true, but not necessarily for all time, like a statistic that is skewed and it could be used manipulatively. And it's based on a circumstance and a parameter that is set. So it's very manipulative, right? So here's the thing that's going on, right? Because we have such a system, a wonderful mathematical system of deciding what is right and exact and what is not right and exact. On the outside, looking in, it appears, and if you follow it this way, that you are following things that have been proven to be true, so you just follow them. You see? And when you talk about leading the 85, the truth is that a lot of them get led because they're thinking logically. Well, this man has spent this much time showing and proving what he knows how to do, right? What he knows how to do, how to live, what to eat, etc., etc. And he's taken it to a level of showing and proving. I just have to follow him, you see? So it becomes like what? You know what I mean? It becomes a thing that is very crucial here, right? And mind you, I'm giving you mentalities because this plus lesson is about analyzing the self. You know what I'm saying? It is about analyzing the self. Now, the knowledge build degree in the 1 to 40 is what is the duty of a civilized person? The duty of a civilized person is to teach he who is savage civilization, righteousness, knowledge of himself, and the science of everything in life, and then bracket in there because it's still there, right? Which is love, peace, and happiness, right? So it's 4 things, right? The truth is that we never really get past the first thing. And just because I've taught at the school for over 21 years, this is like, what is it? I started in 2000. So it's, 21, reaching 22, whatever it is, right? And you very rarely get past the first stage. And I think this is something that we have to learn how to be, for 5%, have to be understand. We have to understand this. And I didn't understand it. I started to understand it when I started to see Firstborn Prince, and he used to always be frustrated. And I said, if I'm going to teach at a law school in Mecca, boy, I'm not going to last too long if I get frustrated like that. And I'm a guy, like we're all, honestly, most of us 5%ers, though, we got knowledge of because we got angry about this world. We got angry about this world. You know what I'm saying? We weren't in states of nirvana and said, you know what? That sounds true too. I'm going to deal with that. No, we were angry about this world. And we knew that there were truths being hidden from us, though. That is how we get the knowledge, though. So we have our own mental makeup, right? It's no matter what anyone says, it is a warrior-driven reality. But it doesn't always draw up warriors. You see? It doesn't always draw up warriors. So going back to this, though, the 2 types of people, those who are seeking salvation and those who are just really knowledge seekers. The truth is, right, I would say this, is that the people that are seeking salvation, right, if you're teaching them, you don't just take, you don't just look at them to try to give them salvation only. Like, listen, this is true. There is no mystery God. It is just you. But how they can involve themselves to learn more about themselves, so that way they have command of themselves. You can't tell somebody that the original man is God and that the original man is the Asiatic black man, and then let's take it all away, because I'm light, I'm coming from Puerto Rico, right? And that original man, and we're saying the Asiatic black man includes all the shades of the original man, the 16 shades on that universal flag, that beautiful flag, and black, brown, yellow, and that includes you, so that there is no determinant of your reality up to what you control. And so no matter what, in every situation, you always have control of the greatest variable ever. In this experiment in life that we are experimenting with all these high explosives, the greatest variable that one can have control over is actually you yourself. And this is what we're teaching. But because we have done the experiment so much, people will rely on what we're doing. Why? Because the first step is what? Right? Teach them civilization, that what they are living is not necessarily correct. And what happens is that those that get the knowledge, that come to get the knowledge of seeking salvation, right? They are at a level where they seem to have realized that salvation, right? That salvation itself, right? Excuse me. Seeking salvation, they've realized that civilization itself is not right and exact. But I think that is an assumption on us, the teacher's part. It is an assumption by us. And I'm telling you that when you're teaching people, if they are seeking salvation, it doesn't mean that they see that this civilization is corrupt, that it has an end if we just build righteously and with our own mind and only focus on that. That is not true. That is not true. And that's why we inflate numbers in the 5% and then it withers away. Okay? So what happens is, what I would say is this. When we deal with people that are seeking salvation, and these are going to be most of the people, is that you have to show them, though, what do you want to be? What do you want salvation from? Because just because they want salvation, they want salvation from the feelings. But the truth is that we're a last stop. They don't mind. We're often a last stop. They might take salvation from anything else. You know what I'm saying? And it's a wonderful salvation to be part of the 5%, because we ask, it sounds like we ask for a lot. We ask a lot for the person to do. You know what I'm saying? For themselves. But we ask very little for the person to do for the nation. You know what I'm saying? Even myself, I remember learning the etymology of the word nation means nacer. I'll write that in there just for the thing. Nacer means, right, which is Latin. It's not Latino, not Spanish. The Spanish word is nació, which is derivative too. Nacer means birthright. So nacer, birthright, right? And nació, which is the Spanish word, which is a newer word, means born, right? We deal with our birthright of who we are. You know what I mean? That's why saying we're the nation of gods and earths means that we focus on our birthright. It doesn't mean that we only deal with those who are going to be in the label God. Doesn't mean label earth. You know what I mean? Right? We deal with all the human families that deal with this as a 5%. That's why the 5% nation of gods and earths, right? And that's why I don't have I don't really get into the arguments of like, the Father called us this, the Father called us that. The truth is, he didn't call us something. He didn't declare things rigidly and officially like that when it comes to that. These are things that he said in passing, the ideas, and certain elders, like, were said to have said that he said that. I'm not going to name the names because I'm not going to get into all that right now. These are things that I was told by elders to me personally. Okay. Right. Now, if there are two types of people seeking salvation, right? One seeking salvation, and then the other is as a true knowledge seeker. Let me give you the negative about the knowledge seeker. The knowledge seeker isn't always seeking knowledge. He's really basically being curious. He just satisfying curiosities. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I'll give you an example. You know, I knew that I was a knowledge seeker. I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist historian about music, specifically hip hop, but to all genres. I've many genres I've written about, right? And of course, definitely lectured about, right? When I quit hip hop journalism because I hated the magazines, I actually was part of, I actually was just continuing to collect music, obsessively collect music. And with the curiosity, with all genres, I have an obsession with having to hear everything. You know what I'm saying? Everything that comes from someone that appears and sounds respectively interesting, I want to hear it. You know what I mean? So jazz records, salsa records, hip hop, but that just means I'm curious. The difference between realizing I was a knowledge seeker and not, right, is because during that time that I wasn't writing because the forums were not there for me. And so I just thought that career was over. They were all bastardized forums. That's why a lot of people know I call the 2000s in hip hop music, especially in the culture and in journalism. Certainly, well, they never stopped. But I called the 2000s the dark ages. A lot of that had to do with my personal experience as well, because I'm part of that. But what I realized was I didn't enjoy it unless I was finding something substantial and having music lead to some kind of understanding approach. And by just enjoying the music just off the head and not being able to categorize it, not being able to write my thoughts about it, not being able to study the depth of it and get more clues about how it was made, then I realized I was a knowledge seeker in that. You know what I mean? And when people get the knowledge, when people come to get the knowledge and they have that bracket where they're not seeking salvation, they're living okay, they're fine, they're civilized. Like they might not eat pork, things like that. They might just be curious. And then they don't come back. I've done this long enough where I know who's going to come back. And that's why I never answer people's questions. If they go, yo, is he coming back? And I won't answer that for you. I will not do that. You know what I'm saying? I think it's disrespectful to all of humanity if I start giving out my statistics in my head. But trust me, I'm nearly always correct. But I think it's disrespectful to humanity. You know what I'm saying? To act like I could write other people's history when I'm really just dealing with basically a constructed algorithm of the insights that they gave me. Because that's really what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Right? And the other thing is this, as far as that is, I would never want to disrespect people like that, because sometimes something you say in one classroom could really help someone. And early on in my teaching, just maybe 3 or 4 years teaching, I would see people from the first year and say how certain things I said, and they were clearly Sunez-like things, and things I knew I said that helped them in their life. And then I never, some of them, I never saw them again after that return of appreciation. So I don't really like to judge people, because whether they come back or not, and this is why I don't ask people to do stuff for the nation. You know what I'm saying? When they come to my classroom, it's not because I don't want them to do stuff for the nation. I want them to do it because they love this. You know what I'm saying? And just like my martial arts training that I got into because of the gods. You know what I mean? The gods, knowledge, peace, wise Ramel. You know what I mean? Knowledge eternal, King He. But specifically those two first, wise Ramel and knowledge, peace, they were the ones that told me you should come see Bobby. Seagung Bobby Lee Whitaker, that was training us all, that would train us all. It was these things, that got me to think that way. You know what I'm saying? So we have these type of people that learn, right? But what everyone needs to learn, the one who's seeking salvation, or the one that is a knowledge seeker is that we teach no matter what is not people to be part of our nation. I'm sorry, but I don't think that if I taught someone to be the true and living God, and mind you, I got enough info here to make you understand that you are the true and living God. But if what I was saying made you that, if what I was saying made you the earth, and that was it, it was all I was saying. And I'm saying this because it's my personal experience. You could have the longest relationships with women because you made them the earth, but they aren't really the earth. They're not naturally imbued with that. They don't have the willingness to sacrifice. And people keep saying we don't have to be poor to be a poor righteous teacher. That poor does not mean poor in poverty. The poor means the sacrifice. Because a lot of the language that Elijah Muhammad used was also language that related to the Christians that he was dealing with. And that language of poverty, that the teacher comes in a state of poverty, is because he is willing to sacrifice it all. He is willing to sacrifice his state, his being, his reality to share. It's the level of sacrifice that makes a teacher the poor righteous teacher. You see? And the truth is that it isn't what you give, it is the sacrifice, that there is time that you really don't have and could use it for something else, and you take it to share this. You know what I mean? How could I tell someone and make someone be that in the nation? I could challenge someone that's proclaiming to be that and ask them to do something in the nation. But then now, that would be just, pointing out, hypocrisies. You know what I mean? That doesn't really help anyone anyway. Anyone anyway. But right. So let me go through this plus lesson. So what I wanted to do was make this plus lesson so that it's something that when people deal with the knowledge of self, they don't realize that we see ourselves in the macro context. We say, listen, who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet, the father of civilization, the God of the universe. Listen, black woman, if that black man's the God, then you're the true and living earth. You know what I'm saying? And as a side addendum, though, we're okay with, we're not the hatred toward other terms like goddess and things like that. It is not a hatred. It is because the earth is the right and exact name. The black woman is not a version of God. And they have the distinct realities. And that was why the earth was chosen. That's why the earth is the right and exact name, the way we see it. Okay? This doesn't mean that you go bombing some woman that says she's a goddess and things like that. These are levels of consciousness, though. You know what I'm saying? Just like when you're in a brother on the street and he goes, peace, king. You don't say, that's in my alphabet. How dare you use my alphabet? You know what I mean? You're like, okay, king, I see you. You know what I mean? These are all things, people's levels of consciousness. And we should respect them and try to add on to them. You know what I'm saying? Right? But we're dealing with things that we see as the supreme name. Right? Now this is the when I made this, it was basically a quick checklist, and going through this is why I want to do these longer, this session particularly, so that way you know how to actually do this. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to do the plus lesson that aren't in there. And one day when I have time to elongate it, I could write the tips to go along with it. But I wanted it to be short and sweet. Really, it's only 2 pages, right? So that way it could be really useful for people, and then they could use it like that, right? So here's the intro. Power bat, and then in parentheses, I have build awareness square, right? So already it's the idea of building your awareness, though. How do you build awareness of truth, right? The truth, and I hate that term, though, my truth, though. There's no such thing as my truth, though. There's understanding, you know what I'm saying? There's your perspective, and then there's your understanding. Those two things are different, too, the way we deal with mathematics, though, because your perspective is how you saw things but may not be able to show and prove. Okay, right? Let's say since we were talking about music, or since I mentioned music, that's what we're talking about. I'm the only one talking here. Since we were talking about perspective of music, let's say if I hear an album one time, that's my perspective. But now I have an understanding about it. If I heard it in depth and I could go to particular points, and because of my descriptive detail of those particular points of music, and then my thoughts on top of that, that comes closer now to an understanding, because now I have detailed that piece of music and then also added on a thought about it. So sometimes the ability to actually show acknowledgement of something is what gives it the professional reality of being an understanding, right? Take that jewel right there. It's the secret to all journalism, especially music journalism, right? Now, I have an intro paragraph. Anyone that wants this plus lesson, just email me. But tell me who you are. Don't be like, yo, dude, I want that plus lesson. Treat it regular. Treat it like you walked up to me and introduce yourself and tell me who you are, right? Whether you want to be a regular student of me or you're just a person that watches online and you get enough by watching online. That might be the case. You keep it there, all right? So this opening paragraph I wrote, the core to a knowledge of self is that there really is only creator and creation in the universe. It's two things, right? Black man, black woman, right? Once this is realized, then what is only sharing the giving and receiving of the fruits of creation. Even the teacher, naturally poor and righteous, is engaged in an overt, that means outright, sharing of forms for the student to draw up their understanding, talents, and nature. As creators, then we must become aware of all we do as vital to the development of self. One square, right? That truth is square, is the surrounding reality of one's awareness of truth that protects one and is used to build and destroy. To develop this powerfully and stand on one square, one must build awareness of one's personal status at all times. With this, one may progress powerfully in their endeavors. I forgot which book it was I read. I really have to find this, though. Let me look in the books I've read this year, okay? May not be in the books I read. It may have been in an article or something. But there was a term, though, that I read in a book about martial arts. I don't know if I can find it here. Or was it this book? Might have been that one. Right? And I doubt I could find it now. But let me see if I can find it while I'm talking to you. But there is a term that it's not like spatial awareness, right? Because that's important in martial arts. Your spatial awareness, right? That's crucial. But there's also a term. There's also a term where how you envision the way you move. And in martial arts, that's key, because sometimes you could be moving and you think, wow, look, I come right through the center line. But in reality, if you filmed yourself, you'd be like this or like that. You know what I'm saying? Like you'd be way off, you know? And one of the keys to mastering martial arts is also being able to match up how you think you're moving to how you actually are. That's why people do, like, I start out my students with, I'm teaching them the horse stance and they're all dipped, but they don't notice that they're dipped. You never notice when you're dipped. You know what I'm saying? Or out of position, right? So this is something that is very crucial when we're dealing with this concept of the knowledge of self. You know what I mean? So that is one of the reasons that this Power Bat Build Awareness Square Plus lesson is crucial, because if you don't acknowledge what you're actually doing, your perceptions of what you think you're doing are going to be the definition. And then what happens is that you set up yourself for mystery. Oh, I got sick. I don't know how. Oh, I'm not really I don't really know as much as I think I do. Well, you actually aren't reading as much as you think. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to go through these, right? So there are 5 things to look for and study in this Power Bat. The first is eat. I just wrote eat. I kept it simple. I wanted the language to be simple so you remember the words. eat. Totally grammatically out of touch here, but it's going to stay in your brain here, okay? Hopefully, right? So I wrote eat. The diet proposed is of the highest refinement and thus able to allow us to project the most power in all of our undertakings. Yet, while a vegan living foods diet is ideal, the nature of awareness is most key. There is nothing that we deliberately take with us and have the most power in deciding how than with the food we place in our bodies. We may love our family and even cherish our possessions, but none of that is directly inserted inside our body as much as the food we eat. I always like saying that because my daughters are very adorable. My daughter's already 20 years old. I definitely can't eat her up. My youngest is 8. I definitely can't eat her up. But the point being, though, is that what we truly love, though, is inside us in thought. It's not really inside us physically. But all these junk foods and all these horrible foods that make us feel good temporarily and we know will have harm, we let ourselves assume that, well, I feel good now, so the status is okay now, or I'll overcome it. And I don't know why. You have to ask yourself the question eventually, why would you go with a slow kill? And that's one of the problems, because I'm going to tell you this about eating. There are tons of literature on this. Sugar, Salt, Fat is a great book. There are a lot of great books about this that are very intriguing and will open your minds up, okay? But the science of food is at such a high level that the greatest food scientists are not figuring out how to give you foods that are healthy. They're figuring out how to manufacture foods that keep you addicted and try to figure out how to mass produce foods to get more money. So the general foods you need, like whole grains, things like that, how to mass produce false grains, GMO, all of these things, right? And that's just case in point. The most farmland in this country, just US, is owned by who? Bill Gates. The same one that is, right, with the pin puncture, right? And if you go to 5% Media now, this is a good segue, a little segue to a side, to a tangent. If you go to 5percentmedia.com, you could check out my pin puncture series. And I'm going to leave it at that. You go check out what the pin puncture series, because whether you got punctured or whether you refuse to or are not or undecided, there's going to be a series of information. Okay? Information. I have my thoughts on it. In some of these columns, I express my thoughts. But everything I give you is peer-reviewed. That means that they said that this was right and exact. So the people that's telling you that the pin is right and exact, I'm showing you research from their own institutions that are saying it's not right and exact. Okay? As we continue, right? As we continue, okay? What else did I write? To begin, we must learn to note the foods we eat, the conditions we dine in, the reasoning behind our eating, and how each and every food feels within us. Okay, let's break those down. We must learn to note the foods we eat. A lot of times, your foods need balance. I train at a high level for myself. I try to train at the highest level, okay? I train other people in martial arts, though. I enjoy it. So when I train people, I want to be as fit as possible, and for myself. I make sure that the diet I have, it isn't that exciting, right? But even when I go with my diet and diversify my diet, I know exactly what I'm looking for as far as protein, what I'm giving up, what I'm getting, all of these things. So it's very important that you have a way of acknowledging where are the proteins, where are the fats, are those good fats, where are the processing, do I really need to eat that? You know what I'm saying? All of these things must be decided, and decided properly, okay? That's noting the foods we eat, though. You have to know what you ate. If you don't know what you ate, like if you can't really recall what you've been eating, it's time to have like a little food diary. And I trust that if you don't keep your food diary is because you realize that you were eating crap, eating terrible, okay? And a lot of people will eat terrible, and then they say, well, I'm not going to eat before bed, right? You try not to eat a couple of hours before you go to sleep. But right now, we got to figure out, though, whether eating the right foods, right and exact. I would rather somebody start off eating a little bit late because they make sure that they'll eat when they get home and make a better meal. And maybe they'll eat like Instead of 3 hours before they go to bed, maybe they ate 2 hours before they go to bed. You know what I'm saying? And all of that. The second thing, the conditions we dine in, that isn't just something I've said that you may be aware of, but Elijah Muhammad, that's really one of the major jewels in How to Eat to Live, books 1 and 2, was making sure that you ate in a comfortable reality. That's why he reduced it to one meal only. You know, he said if you work hard, if you work a blue-collar job that's heavy lifting, and that would include athletes, right? You have to eat more. But you want to eat always in a calm state. You don't want to eat in a rush state. Okay? So if you can, always try to eat calmly. Okay? Then the next thing is the reasoning behind our eating and how each and every food feels within us. If you don't start to get some, just like when you're lifting weights, you get the mind, muscle, body connection. You know what I'm saying? You have to feel that curl. So that way it could really curl. You know what I'm saying? So that way, you know, if you don't feel a curl, you'll just be doing a whole bunch of this. You know what I mean? So even with a lower weight, you can feel that curl. You know what I'm saying? That's what you want to do. You know what I mean? And when you're eating, you want to actually say, what is this food doing with me? How do I feel after I eat? You know what I'm saying? So even when you decide to get heavier, if you decide to lose weight, you're making it conscious and you're feeling how it goes. And trust me, when you get to certain levels of body fat, you'll start to feel different. You know what I'm saying? You'll start to feel different. Okay? Right? In doing this, as I continue, in doing this, we may better decide how to use our food as a deliberate energy source and solve countless problems, often not attributed to diet, yet truly are, as in difficulty reading, lethargy. That means being, you know, just lazy and tired, lack of emotional control, lack of desire. These are things that the food is going to draw up. So you have to start looking at what foods you eat. Everybody starts to look at, yo, I'm the God. It's my fault that I'm like this, that, and the other. But now that you know that it's your fault, then what are the things that you did? Now make it concrete. Don't just make, that's my personality. That's why I have to work on it. A lot of times working on it is looking at the things you did, and that includes the things that you actually decide to put in there. Okay? The truth is that no matter how supreme your mind is, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. You know, if you're going to eat all the foods that are going to cause problems. And I tell you, you know, in my years in this nation, I have found people not eat pork. I've never been around anyone that eats pork in the nation. But I have seen some foods that I feel are as junk laden. Like if pork is the, if Michael Jordan, they have eaten LeBron, they have eaten Westbrook, they have eaten, you know, Earl the Pearl Monroe, they have eaten Kareem Abdul-Jabbar level of junk foods. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the pork was a starting point. We have to look deeper into what's going on. And in these days and times, though, we're being attacked by a virus that is pinpointing comorbidities. A very, very, very high survival rate for the population, but not those with comorbidities. But here's the crazy thing. How much of a population has comorbidities, things that are unhealthy about them? We have to do better, and we have to have some discipline. That's where the fasting comes in. The fasting, that fasting isn't discipline for those 3 days. That's the test. That's just like exhibition. The real fasting is the ability to say during a day that you are eating, to say, listen, I'm going to wait because these aren't the best foods options for me. And I'm willing to go a little hungry when I really, really needed that food. And I'll wait for later. So that's important. You know what I mean? The second thing in this build awareness square is train. The peace course may reach a point where you may reach and decide to train martially the art of Shaolin Kung Fu. Okay, this is something that I wrote that in the plus lesson. This is something that I charge for. My sessions are exceptionally well priced. Okay, and it takes a lot of time, whether I teach you in person or I teach you through the Zoom. Right? Now, I'm saying here, however, athletic achievement, notoriety, and making punks jump up to get beat down is to the heart of the awareness here. It is that our bodies are the outward expression of our thoughts and will only be equipped to do what we train it to do. Just as the mind drives the body well trained inspires the mind. Thus, this interplay of creation in mind and body of Biang Xing Zhang Bao, right? Metamorphosis of three treasures Kung Fu. The root of training is to track your exercise. Study the many outlets of interest, sports, martial arts, whatever intrigues you, and work on scheduling a personal protocol for consistent training. That sounds simple, but many of you are not attacking that. Okay? Very, very quickly here. Okay? Short workout, as intense as possible. Do every single set that you think of. Push-ups, dips, crunches, right? You train 3 things. Strength training for your upper and lower body, right? Massive. I'm training for nothing. You have nothing. You have nothing. No equipment. Massive amounts of push-ups of all types. Massive amounts of squats. Okay? Slow and high intent, slow and careful calf lifts where you keep it for a long time, flexing the muscle 5+ seconds, then down 5+ seconds on a step. Very short. Squats all the way down as far as you could go, as many as you can. You could add in things like jump squats, this and that, all of those things. I'm saying nothing. You have nothing. You don't have anything but just you, your body. Push-ups of all different kinds, though. Everything till failure. You have nothing to train your abs, though. Crunches, leg lifts, all that kind of stuff till failure. You go on YouTube, you find weightless, equipmentless ab workouts. You do everything till failure. Every single set till failure. And then you say, listen, that was a 10-minute workout and I'm done. Okay? And you keep adding on. The more love you have from it, the more you do. Okay? That's just a quick training, tip. Okay? Then now, 1 and 2, eat and train, starts to become intertwined. Okay? The third thing, read. What are we reading? What are we watching? What do we see more often than not because we are drawn to it? What are we absorbing? What the concrete reality of the knowledge of self means that we are in a society adverse to our growth and development. I had a typo in there, extra word. There could be no such thing as a non-reader for those that understand the nature of war our lives are bred in. We must begin by learning to choose what we read and make real goals to complete the reading of books, articles, and writings. We must then extend this to all that we knowledge. For example, if you did 0 research but just listened to a doctor for the pin, then you didn't do what we taught you to do. We taught you to do the knowledge. If you didn't get yourself to read some type of studies, to go into the mass amount of literature that is written with details that show the real impact of this, the real realities of this experimental pin, then you didn't do the knowledge. What are you reading? Right? If you think that your health is a right and left wing issue, then you've already failed. Okay? If you think right wingers are against pins because that's a right wing thing to do, and left wing is good because they advocate health like a vaccine, then you've already failed because you don't know what a vaccine is. You haven't described it. You don't know what allopathic medicine is, and you failed because that's not how you do the knowledge. Okay? That's not how we do the knowledge. What are we reading? What are we studying? What are we watching? Okay? How do we make our decisions is based on that. Then the fourth thing, okay? Write. What do we write? What are we saying? What are ideas? Who and what do we write for? Writing is a form of shared understanding for those who will not always be around. Writings are your sharings absorbed by others distant from you, created in a cipher for another cipher. How developed is our projection of our ideas? It must be oft repeated that the idea is the foundation of the great writer. So I said the idea, the understanding, the idea is the foundation of the great writer. We must begin to write our own personal journals and catalog our understanding. Increase the amount we write so that just as we speak and or share writings to the world, they are the most sincere, willingly, useful, and best understanding we have at every moment. Too many of you are writing all over social media and you write like shit. Okay? You need to be developing your writing by yourself and then share things to the world. Stop using social media as a draft for your thoughts and then share them out there. I say this to students too. You know, one very good student, he annoys me. He writes his understandings and degrees on Facebook, and I hate it. Okay? Stop doing that. Stop doing that. See your social media as a published record of you to the world. Even, you don't have to respect anybody else's social media, but respect yours. Stop using it for your whims of immediate emotion, because all you do is allow algorithms to promote your own weakest emotions and sell you something at the drop, or promote things and show you things on your timeline that augment your weakest emotions immediately. You got to fix that. What are you writing? What are you saying? How are you sharing your ideas? And some of you have to write because your words are so weak that it's not even what you think. The last thing is this. We're 5%ers. That's what we intend to do. And if you're not a 5%er and you watch these videos from me, that's what I'm doing. This is what I found to be one of my gifts. Long before I became a 5%er, I knew how to teach. And I was teaching people many things. The last one is, the fifth one is share. The last one, 5, share. The genre of self-help literature is vast. This is what I wrote. Designed to accept life as a rat race and then lace the right shoes for the finish. While the sincerity of the student can never be given by one's teacher or mere teaching, the development of virtue can be engaged into by developing an awareness of one's sincerity. Truthfully, no one in this society will judge us wrong for transmuting, meaning putting our greatest energies to think and grow rich, and let all those around us sink as we switch. However, when one asks oneself, once I have found my talent and is able to survive me, then what is the nature of truly thriving? We must then take note of simply sharing. Are we sharing disingenuously for profit and fame? Are we sharing truth out of anger and resentment? Are we sharing with a hidden agenda to receive something in return? It is difficult to gauge what must become natural. See, we got knowledge of self, but it doesn't mean that we are behaving naturally. Okay? One does not preclude the other immediately. To try to log what one shares is not a technical activity, but a personal retrospective. I think it's also disingenuous for us to jot down. And so one thing I'll tell you not to do is jot down the things that you share. Don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows me for years. When they ask me, I never talk to people and I say, that's my brown seed. That's my yellow seed. If it was, I'd have an army behind me. I never count the students I teach, though. I have no idea about the number. If you ask me how many students and people coming to learn I've encountered at a law school in Mecca in my classroom, I have to say that it goes over 500 at least. But I don't know who took these teachings like that. I cannot give you a number. We must take note of simply sharing and the sincerity of how we gauged it. We must start to take note of our nature. Are we sharing? You know what I mean? Try to, take time for personal retrospection. I think meditation is only meditation if you let go of all your thoughts. But after you spend time working on that, letting go of everything, you should also spend some time in a different type of meditation that isn't really meditation, but rumination. You know what I'm saying? You should spend some time. Here's what I mean by that, right? And you should take some time in rumination of the thought of your own sharing, whether it is sincere, whether it is useful, whether it's just basically giving you statistics or making you feel good that you did your duty, right? That in this way, we may actually judge our talents and the worth of how they can one day aid others. This is why the best part is the best part, okay? A lot of times, though, the sharing is for yourself, okay? You need to learn how to share with yourself properly. And that means demanding discipline of yourself instead of going out there and demanding discipline of others, right? And this is very difficult, all right? So there are a couple of minutes, right? We have a 55-minute mark. I've been live here. That is the Build Awareness Square Plus lesson. Okay, I don't know if there are any questions about it. I see that like it kind of like stopped. I stopped getting comments here on the chat. I see Justice Rakim Allah said, "Why do you feel some get knowledge stuff only to go back to Islam, the religion?" And you are Bush's. I'm sure you meant Buddhism. When the original people experienced knowledge beyond such as it states in the 10th degree, because what I answer is salvation. You know what I mean? People are not seeking the knowledge; they're seeking salvation. You know what I mean? And a lot of those tell you that even if you fail, you will be saved. You see what I'm saying? And we don't talk about any of that because we don't expect our failure, and we don't preclude, we don't assume our failure, right? And we're also, and I think this. You mentioned Buddhism. I think many of the Buddhist precepts and a lot of the Buddhist insights from many of the sects of Buddhism, whether they be Zen from Japan, whether it be Chan from Buddhism, and all the many Mahayana, all of those, they're all worthy of studying and worthwhile. You know what I mean? Right? Rome, I'm doing great. All right, so I don't really see any questions. Rome, you said, indeed, the world and planet can either make you or break you. You have to be aware and willing to listen, observe, and be aware of what's happening. Yeah, and take note that is difficult. I made this Build Awareness Square because it is not easy to acknowledge that you may be oblivious. I don't know. I think that once we get knowledge of self, we become aware of the fact that the original man's got that, we think that all of a sudden it turns on and we actually are able to be aware. That is not true at all. You know what I mean? Divine, you said if you move the letters around in the word eat, you get ate, which is the past participle. Yes, yes. Also, you can move them around again and get tea, which is also good for you. Okay, then there's a fun word game. All right. BC Realm, I did hear about that. And that has to do with the genetically modified foods. You know, I had said that before mRNA technology, the first step in making us ingest genetic therapy was first with GMO foods. You know what I'm saying? So definitely with that. Okay, we have 2 minutes left here. I said I'd do this exactly 1 hour, so I'll answer any last minute questions. Kareem said, "What is bad about having the itis? I tend to like to eat and fall asleep." The problem is that you slow. Okay, if you ate a good meal and you get the itis, right? That doesn't mean that you ate something wrong. However, it means that you probably might have eaten too much of something. I love Ezekiel bread, but they use, and it's all sprouted flour, but they also add gluten. And because it's sprouted wheat, no matter what, any type of wheat produces gluten protein. Gluten is the protein from wheat. When I tend to have 2 sandwiches, I get very sleepy, but I get too groggy. So even if I take a nap, I can't really get. So there's nothing wrong with getting a nap after, because what happens is you probably didn't get a nap all day. You know what I mean? Like I always need a post-workout nap. So do I eat my meal, then sleep, or sleep, then eat? So what happens is that I am taking like a post-eating nap as well, if you think about it. Right? But you have to look, is this itis also accelerated because I don't sleep properly, or with the food, when we talk about the food, am I eating too much food at one serving? So like I tend to try to eat as much food as I can, but I try to spread it out and keep eating during the day as opposed to eating these giant meals. You know what I mean? So, you know, so that's the thing. That's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Right? So sleep is very crucial too. And you know, it's funny, I didn't write it in there. It's not in the Build Awareness Square, but in between eat and train, like between eat and train really is sleep, because it's so crucial. It's so crucial. You know what I mean? Right? But yes, yes, you know what I mean. Yeah, peace, Inf Mega. Allah School of Mecca. Yeah, I'm done with this hour, so I'm gonna get off though. But definitely, I want you know, in my class Thursday, I could definitely build on it and at any time. You know what I'm saying about genetically modified therapy because it's intriguing. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna publish maybe today as I start to get down and work on my book. Um, I'll throw up a quick article. What I think is the most easiest, quickest, and all the books I'm going to share on my pin puncture series are going to be books that you can email me if you don't have it and you can't afford it, or you know you just want it right now. I'm you don't even have to say why. I will email it to you. Okay, so you know it's important though, but you know right? I'll leave you with this fun fact. The creator of mRNA technology that goes in the vaccine does not advocate the vaccine. He says it is dangerous. And and that man's name is Robert Malone. Go to go to his Twitter and you'll get education to the fullest. You know what I mean? Robert Malone. A lot of people don't know his name, right? There's going to be many names that I educate people about in that pin puncture series. You know what I mean? It's all coming. All verifiable stuff though, not just like, you know, crazy conspiracy theory, you know, theorists. You know what I mean? Okay. But all right. So with that said, I'm gonna let you go. Email me if you would like a copy of the plus lesson. I realize that there's a couple of typos in it, but one day I'll fix it up. If I fix up the typos, I know I'm gonna add on to it. So you'll get the early version and then I'll add on to it and then just be a new version. But if you want that immediate version, just email me. Go to 5% percentmedia.com for you know the pin puncture series. So you know anything you need, you know I already have two things up there that are great. It's going to be great stuff, you know. So you might be alone with the ostracizing from your family or anything else in the community and these mandates, especially in New York City where I'm at now. But at least know, and that's sometimes all the 5% has, is that we're right and exact. All right. So with that said, this is the extra hour I promised as a plus lesson. So you can go to it if you want to know the plus lesson. You can listen to this and have the document with you, and you can make your own program. All right. So with that said, peace. And we do this like the Chinese, sun and the moon. Peace.